The first possible way of reducing stereotype threat is to try to change the stereotypes themselves. This is really hard to do, but it's still worth addressing because it's something we would all sort of like to be able to do. And so let's say what we know about changing stereotypes. The first thing to note, to say it is not true that X are Y. The typical way of posting myth busting. This is bad. Why is this bad to say? The message that is received when somebody hears this is that others think that the stereotype is true. It reinforces the idea that the stereotype exists. Remember that belief in stereotypes is not a key element of stereotype threat. So the main message that comes across is that one thinks it's false and that many think it is true. This can actually reinforce rather than reducing the stereotypes. Not an effective strategy. However, there are some other potentially effective strategies. If you want to change the stereotype, there's various things you can do. A couple of them that I want to mention here. You can act like you don't know it. This can be far more effective than combating it. If you act surprised when somebody brings up a stereotype, this can be effective in helping them understand that this stereotype is not as widespread as you might hope, but it is acting, or if you prefer, lying. And so it's a mixed bag, right? It can work. It's sort of chancy. It's not a surefire thing, but it's something you can try if need be. Another way you can work to try to change a stereotype is no, how do I want to put this? You can break the mold. You can be unlike the stereotype suggests. You can talk about and emphasize the portions of your personality and life that do not fit the stereotype around you. But this can seem fake, depending on how you do it. So it's also chancy. It's not a safe thing to do necessarily. It can work, but it's not a surefire thing. One thing that does seem to be generally true is if others raise a stereotype, that's the time that it's much safer to combat it. But make sure when you combat it, you can make a strong case. If somebody says, oh, people with big ears are really good at computing, people with small ears are really bad, and I say, that's not true, there was at least one study where somebody with small ears did well, I have not made myself a good case, right? So you need to make sure if you're going to combat it, you have a case that sounds convincing. Or just be dismissive. Sometimes just sort of, that's ludicrous, it has nothing to do with it, can be an effective technique. If you don't have a strong case to make, or if you don't have the time to make a strong case, or if some in the room might not even be aware of the stereotype, that can be effective. However, none of these are particularly great at changing stereotypes. Stereotypes are relatively robust. Changing stereotypes is probably not the most effective technique of going against stereotype threat, even though it's the one most of us think about first.